So guys, with this week so far, once again, if you guys are a video, but look at the chaos cults. This is a video from a little while ago, so I don't know how relevant it is to the lore, but I'm assuming it's good enough. It got recommended to me a while ago, and I was a lazy piece of balls and just never got to it. So I'm sorry, but I'm here now, so we're good. But it's from a different creator than we normally react to. So his video will be in the description. Show him some love. Like I do with every Warhammer content creator, is they are able to take this vast amount of lore and make it to, these videos to simplify it enough for someone like me who's relatively newer to the whole Warhammer universe, and I'm able to actually understand what's going on instead of just being thrown in this huge spider web of content and lore. So without them, I wouldn't know where to start, where to go, where to understand anything. So make sure you guys show some love. Can't speak. Again, original video in the description. Show them some love. If you guys enjoy my content, you guys enjoy my reactions, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get to it.
Sighed as you listen to a half-heard sound.
Hello, beautiful.
It is here, a finger touch away. It is always behind you, especially when you are alone.
For tens of billions of humans, life in the 41st millennium is nothing but pain, slavery, and ignorance. A life of unceasing misery broken only by the grave. Brilliance crushed by the weight of dogma and intellectual repression. From the wealthy and privileged to the lowliest slaves, there is room for dissent and discontent in the race of man. Revolution and reform are unknown words in the calcified bureaucracy of the Imperium. The indomitable armies that protect humanity from external threats also crush any native attempt at change. So where can someone channel their disgust with the system? Straight into the demonic arms of the chaos cults. The ruinous powers are by far the most dangerous threat to humankind. Lurking below and beyond human sanity in the twisting realm of the immaterium lay the chaos gods. Foul beings of unstoppable might born of the evil thoughts of mortals. Though divergent in practice, all of the chaos gods harbor a single dream: to take dominion of real space and merge it into the twisting realm of the warp. Chaos has launched innumerable raids against the Imperium and 13 as yet unsuccessful Black Crusades. But don't mistake the lulls between these overt attacks as peace. In between the wars, chaos is seeding countless human worlds with the vastly more dangerous, insidious threat of cults. Human curiosity, as shown in the legend of Pandora, is one of the most dangerous weaknesses affecting the Imperium. The bright, educated scholars trained in lore, both arcane and mundane, are vital to the running of the Imperium. These savants are allowed to delve deeply into the knowledge governing the giant technomantic superstructure of mankind. Yet intelligence, drive, and passion for comprehension are needed and reviled in equal measure. The Imperium of man is calcified to a point where sometimes hundreds or thousands of years pass, with no change or innovation whatsoever.
Ugh.
Human beings are instinctively driven to create, to shape, and remake the world around them in new ways. The iron hand of the Inquisition and the High Lords of Terra sitting apathetic on a distant planet can breed resentment. Resentment can turn to hatred when the vast organs of state power refuse to allow scientific progress that will save you or your world from needless suffering. Intellectual freedom is brutally suppressed. You cannot research what you want, say what you want, think what you want without the eyes of the state watching for any sign of heresy. Human wisdom
Everything's
is forever
heresy,
broken
man.
on the wheel of ignorance. These overripe minds yearning to bear fruit make a perfect bed for the growth of chaos. Tzeentch, the Lord of Change, has recruited millions to his secret societies dedicated to esoteric lore. They work sub rosa inside houses of learning, pilfering forbidden knowledge. Initially, the wisdom gleaned seems harmless and highly advantageous to their careers, but gradually they learn the secrets of chaos magic, dark ritual, and infernal invocations. The unholy books begin to tear away at their sanity until the urge to slay and rule others is unstoppable.
Sounds nice.
Under the holy mandates of the Inquisition, they must override their deepest needs and desires to seek, to know, to understand. So harmless a thing as learning is ruthlessly crushed. Their world, their dreams, their belief in the Imperium are shattered. Nothing seems to mean anything anymore.
When a person knows the deepest suffering one can bear, so deep that they break free from their original self, their compassion dies.
The chains of the mind, the erasure of dreams, hope, and learning produce a kind of madness and desperation. Tzeentch and his heretical sorcerers provide the outlet for seekers of wisdom outside of prescribed norms.
Dude, bro, it looks weird.
Such is the nihilistic insanity that can drive a man to the arms of the Chaos Gods. What terrible thoughts and feelings can drive normal men and women into worship of hell? Hope. Hope is the most powerful driving force in all of creation. And if the only thing providing hope is a demon, then you will grab hold even of their clawed hands. The day-to-day lives of an average Imperial citizen varies widely. Some are fairly content in peaceful, prosperous democracies. Many, however, are locked away in a futuristic version of medieval tyranny. Grist for the mills to grind away until all use is gone and death takes them. The hive worlds that house teeming billions of miserable humans feel they can escape their doom only with demon worship. Hive gangs of brutish thugs making a living off of murder and territory are easy to seduce. They grow up totally unsocialized. Killing means less than nothing to them. A powerful man promising to increase their ability to destroy would be most welcome in their passion to ruin the power structures oppressing them. Some workers or miners are lost in such miserable poverty lasting generations that they worship chaos as a last act before death. At least one group deliberately decided to follow the path of hell, intending for the Inquisition to slaughter them all in a form of mass suicide. Such is the horror average citizens of the Imperium go through that calling down their own extermination is preferable to life. And it's not so simple to bring about change in anything because the tendrils of chaos are always seeking to wrap themselves around any dissonant force. Planetary revolutions, government overthrows, and coups are notoriously tricky to bring about even without demonic interference. But lurking in the corner of every terrorist cell, every demonstration, every street barricade filled with righteous citizens are the eyes of chaos. The Imperium is in a terrible trap of its own making. The price for peace is eternal vigilance, but within that vigilance of the Inquisition is torture, murder, and injustice. Ironically, the ruthless suppression required to keep down the tendrils of chaos is a major reason people join the chaotic forces in the first place. Any reform movement of any kind to make things better is considered heresy and abandoned. The hopeless folk...
That's the problem. Is like anything that doesn't follow what the Imperium wants to verbatim is heresy. So it's like if you're a grunt and you're such a terrible life, it's either you join chaos or you live in a society where you're either just gonna just die by working, die by your your fellow man, or just die from some trumped up heresy charge. You know what I'm saying? Like, your options aren't really that plentiful.
Folk who just want to make this a little better for themselves are seized by hell. Like a bacterium entering into a weak, undefended cell, demons crawl into even the noblest intentions. The only way to advance in a stratified society may be through leaking the immaterium into your world and staining humanity with its corruption. And the cycle of repression, revolution, and corruption continues unbroken while chaos gluts itself on human suffering. The intellectual and aristocratic elite running the manufactorums, planets, and trade networks would seem to be at ease with the system as it is. They have, after all, reached the heights of imperial power and respect. Don't be fooled. The hand of complicated groups to deal with are the variations on the imperial cult. Part of the leeway shown to the millions of worlds and trillions of worshippers of the Emperor is that local differences of belief are allowed. It would be impossible to police everything with absolute precision. Most of these differences are superficial and merely reflect the specific cultural idiom from which they arose. A pre-Black Powder world is not going to worship the God Emperor the same way as a hive world. But some are forever teetering on the fall into heresy. Even the sharp eyes of the Inquisitors cannot stop every change in belief shifting from harmless to lethal. Religion was the motive force behind the vile
Damn.
word-bearers, the first of the Emperor's
Damn.
champions to be corrupted during the Great Crusade.
Ugh.
Blasphemous as it may be to think, the idea of the
Ooh.
imperial cult was created by the traitor legion of word-bearers in many ways. The first ever organized worship of the Emperor was an act of evil from men already poisoned by chaos and disobeying the Emperor's direct orders. The word-bearers claim the lion's share of the blame for spearheading the corruption of the Space Marine legions to chaos. The Chaos Cult is above all a threat from within, and no place, no region of the galaxy, even the most holy veneration of the God Emperor, is free from putrid corruption. The point of the cults is to worm their way into the most sacred of areas and strike where we are most vulnerable. And pretending to be worshipping the Emperor when really you're committing the most dark of heresies is the perfect way to hide. One of the most blatantly dangerous types of Chaos Cult are the martial brotherhoods and lodges formed by some in the military. Anyone can form them, but Space Marines with their zealous fighting spirit are particularly prone to these warrior lodges. These Marines become obsessed with the extreme violence of their jobs. The ceaseless wars against mankind's enemies are no longer a solemn duty. They become a wild orgy, slaking berserk rages. They revel in bloodshed for its own sake. Suddenly, the most fearsome warriors mankind can produce have turned against humanity. In some ways, Khorne, the god of blood, claims all acts of rage and violence to be a source of his power. He waits in his dark sanctum on his throne of skulls, drinking in any and all acts of violence and combat. Even trying to stop him would necessitate warfare, something that would give him strength. The loss of reason that comes with battle fury eats away slowly at even the mighty will of a Space Marine. They don't understand at first that they've been twisted by pride into embracing evil. Warrior cults, whether on primitive feral worlds or among the Adeptus Astartes themselves, combine real-world military training, competence and discipline with implacable zeal for chaos. They are extremely dangerous both because you can fall into these beliefs so easily and because they have the military might to defeat inquisitorial strike forces. The Space Marines absolutely must commit acts of violence, and for many of them, with poor willpower, they're always threatening to be subverted by chaos. Commonly, the sects do not know at first that they are worshipping demons. Some cults begin with whispers and reasonable requests. What harm could a little deviation from the norm do? Isn't a mutant just a human being with superficial differences? Or couldn't a psyker be the next phase of human evolution? And most pressing of all to the lives of the weak and oppressed masses, why shouldn't we revolt against our vile oppressors? Why shouldn't we water the tree of liberty with the blood of tyrants? All sins of chaos cults lay ultimately with the sin of pride, the prideful belief that they, a mere human, could know better than the God Emperor himself. Why should anyone deny me the right to study and learn
What
how
the
I
hell's
choose?
going on?
The right to make political changes over my own life. The right to fight back against imperial corruption when it threatens to hurt me. Betraying the Emperor and his holy will may mean momentary release from misery and suffering, but it will always be replaced with something even worse. All it takes is a prideful step from a single man. That's where all the cults begin. Someone who has tasted the sensual pleasures too freely, or read too many books of forbidden lore, or took a little too much joy in slaughtering his enemies. Perhaps he goes insane, perhaps he just picks up a book he shouldn't have. Or perhaps he's actually possessed by a demon that controls him from then on. His personality totally sublimated to a demon. Or perhaps he's entirely cynical and treats the cult purely as a means to power. Whatever his motivation, he is then in direct contact with the hellish realms and becomes an enemy of order. For much of his reign, he keeps the exact nature of his overlords a secret. Only he is privileged enough to know the full plan of the cult. Know of the existence of other cults, and know how to summon the Dark Ones. The cult leader is almost always extremely charismatic, able to use honeyed words or fire and brimstone fury to cajole, bully, threaten, and beguile his followers into joining him in greater and greater deviance. Soon the weak-willed fools are gulled into obeying him like a master. They consider themselves to be the chosen ones of a new and special group outside of the petty concerns of others. For the broken spirits too often found in the oppressive imperial hierarchy, any way of feeling good about themselves and superior to others is a joyous occasion. Years of misery, self-hatred, tamping down their inner desires and urges are washed away, and replaced with veneration and obeisance to the cult leader and his dark gods. With his inner retinue of sycophants and servants, the newly endued heresiarch continues recruitment tailored to his specific abilities and his Chaos Lord's wishes. A Slanesh worshipper may troll the decadent pleasure path.
I hate Slanesh. That's all. If you guys would find my content, you guys know I hate Slanesh. I hate Slanesh. Hate Slanesh.
Palaces of
Sorry about
the
that,
jaded,
guys.
hyper-wealthy elite, passing himself off as a worldly man of leisure, with ideas about slaking the carnal thirsts of the aristocracy.
What the hell is happening in this video, man?
A follower of Tzeentch may be a wizened man late in life who founds a speculative society of fellow researchers at a local academy. They have to keep quiet about their activities, of course, as he promises to let the scholars in on information marked forbidden by those busybodies at the Inquisition. A rough-and-tumble former military man spends his retirement at the taverns frequented by the local Imperial Guard, telling harrowing stories of battle, buying everyone drinks, and convincing a few of them he knows a special way to make them even more efficient killing machines. Maybe to make them unstoppable juggernauts with just a few old rites and rituals. A follower of Grandfather Nurgle, Lord of Disease, could masquerade as a kindly nurse. She stays with even the most loathsome and grotesque patients tending to their horrible sores without a cross word, and she could tell them about a way to recover from their illness with faith in the right
she's
person.
seen worse.
A good, kindly grandfather who can help them be free of illness forever, and get revenge on all of the people who shunned and hated them because of their illness. However he gathers his servants, the cult grows and grows, penetrating further and further into every subgroup of a planet's administration. The heresiarch moves his followers an inch at a time to cross over into outright villainy. Like a boiled frog, the cultists may not realize what they have done until it's too late. They escalate gradually until the cult has committed dark acts of heresy that cannot be forgiven. Soon the cult is the only support structure they have left, and the harshest punishments of torture and death await anyone even suspected of treachery. The only thing left for them is to further embrace the mad rites of the cult. The sect tries hard to be as welcoming and friendly as possible. They have to rely on severe disenchantment or outright hatred of the system to thrive. So they create what seems like a welcoming group of friendly people who understand their struggles and provide a home for them. The cults press hard on the most fragile parts of humans, their emotions, and manipulate them. That is, after all, what the warp is, the steaming jungle of the unconscious created by feelings and desires. The demons and eventually the cultists become experts at twisting the knife into people's feelings and playing on their innermost primal needs. After months or years, the cultist may see the group as his true family and home, the people that actually represent him and love him. They may be beyond the ability to know when the day finally arrives, the day of revelation when all is made plain to the masses what they are truly worshipping and what their beliefs really mean. Until then, the cult focuses purely on survival and transmission, simply living another day when all of society, including a vast force of fanatical warriors, is dedicated to opposing everything you do. During the cult's existence, they adapt a huge network of secret codes, occult symbols, and ciphers. Like a resistance movement against an enemy army, the cultists work to preserve themselves until the moment to strike, only occasionally committing acts of sabotage, murder, and assassination if they are threatened with discovery. Murdering law enforcement that gets too close and building elaborate support networks of food, weapons, supplies, and plans occupies much of their time. The cult lays all of the groundwork for a successful invasion. They also spend years systematically breaking down the beliefs in the Imperium and the Emperor, and replacing them with the evil beliefs of the cult and the Chaos Gods. Slowly, by inches, people learn to accept the demonic forces as normal and the Emperor as evil. Even those that aren't directly affected by the propaganda see a decline in faith for what they believe in, and a decline in hope, teaching everyone that the demons are the ones that they should work for, that they're not really evil at all, and that the God Emperor who loves and protects them is actually some sort of strange corpse god that should be reviled. All the while carefully...
To be fair, he is a corpse god at this point. I mean, to be fair, he's literally a living corpse. To be fair.
Plotting out the location of enemy bunkers and weapons caches, learning security codes, ensuring emergency service equipment is old and slow to respond in a crisis, destroying the infrastructure of a planet so it cannot respond when it's in dire threat, slowly hollowing out the entire world until it's an empty shell needing only a little push to break it open. Not all cults reach that level of seriousness. Some are just to pull back a few thousand slaves to slake the thirst for torture of Slanesh. Others are lower-level demons that enjoy twisting mortals into blood sacrifice. Some bizarre sorcerers of Tzeentch have their own inscrutable reasons for creating these cults and then abandoning them when they're discovered. Some choose never to reveal themselves. Only when the Inquisition arrives to slaughter the congregants is it apparent what they were worshipping. These minor cults are a deadly threat to those near them, but can't threaten things on a planet-wide basis and are merely a nuisance overall. But a serious demon cult operates as part of a planned invasion force.
Ugh.
They reveal themselves to the masses at the very last moment before the cataclysm. When the cults finally reveal themselves, they conclude rather than begin a terrible process. The cults typically spend years or even decades slowly plotting their victory. Millions of migrants from other worlds, the dispossessed, the insane, members of smaller cult groups, have secretly been funneled over years onto the planet, concentrating a few isolated bands of cultists from across a sector into one location. Like water dropping ever on a stone, they gradually wear away the resistance of mankind. The cult has likely seeded its followers, many demon-possessed monstrosities, into key parts of a planetary administration. The planetary defense force is almost assuredly riddled with chaos servants far up the chain of command. The cultists have painstakingly studied the planet's defenses and crippled them whenever they could. They've poisoned the water supply, destroyed food,
Damn.
done everything an inner enemy can do to stab you in the back when you least suspect it. Finally, a terrible explosion of warp energy rises across the entire world and the carnage begins. The cultists and their followers, often driven totally insane by years of deprivation, disease, famine, and hostile warp energies, rage across the world in bestial fury.
But nothing could stem the avalanche. Their world crumbled. Cities exploded. A whirlwind of looting. A firestorm.
Yeah.
Become hellish warrens, the bombed-out, insane remnants wander, hoping to kill or be killed in the name of hell. Millions and millions of cultists have seized most of the planet and its weapons and vehicles. Mad prophets infested with the souls of a demon become dark missionaries, spreading visions of doom and inflaming the minds of the survivors. Some perhaps have taken hold of the massive orbital defense network and rained down a ferocious bombardment of hellfire missiles and lasers from space, flattening the cities and killing billions. Eventually enough blood has been shed, enough torturous pain slashes the veil of reality, and the ritual is complete. The warp bleeds itself out into our plane of existence. Out of the warp pour the originators of the mayhem, the traitor Legionis Astartes and their demonic masters.
He looks dope,
If no
though.
help arrives, the Chaos Marines swiftly annihilate the remnants of the planet's defenders and seize total control of the planet. The nature of the demonic regime varies based on who the cultists ultimately worship. Khorne, god of blood, and his soldiers will create a savage world of blood feuding and turn entire cities into titanic gladiatorial arenas to slay hundreds of millions for his own vile amusement. Slanesh's followers will drag their awesome instruments of torture through the void and begin a regime of mutilation and pain so vile Camarog itself would find it appalling. Nurgle is likely the worst of them all. Grandfather Nurgle, Lord of Disease, will infect the remnants of man with his terrible plagues.
Papa Nurgle.
Men, women, and children will be riddled with pustules, cancers, and sores to please the hideous life-giver. Whatever the specifics of the cult's beliefs, woe and nightmares will befall any left alive on the planet. The remaining cultists are rounded up and formally enslaved. Demons drive them with whips and blows to build evil shrines and prepare the planet for an Imperial relief force. If a relief force arrives, even with both Imperial Guardsmen and Space Marine chapters, they will have a terrible battle on their hands. The traitor legions and their demonic overlords treat their human followers with undisguised contempt. Though much of the success of Chaos was born of mortal worshippers, the forces of the warp treat them as pathetic lickspittles barely worth their notice. When war comes, the
So much
cultists
better
are
than the
driven out
Imperium.
onto the battlefield as cannon fodder. The lunatic hordes of warp-twisted mortals charge the enemy with no regard for tactics or common sense. The madmen sweep forward straight into waiting autocannon fire and nests of chainsword-wielding assault marines. Pathetic human weaklings are perfect to force onto minefields to clear them before a battle. The dregs wield captured weapons if they're lucky, or iron bars and knives if they're not. The assault is directed only to soak up enemy bullets, foul their guns, and provide meat shields for the traitor legions following behind. The cultists are willing participants in their own demise, having promised to die for their masters in exchange for supernatural powers in the afterlife. Some cultists are kept around merely to be killed and used on the battlefield as a mobile sacrifice to bring more demons to bear. The fate of the cultist is ultimately as abusive, violent, cruel, and horrible as they visited out onto their friends and neighbors. A more enterprising force of chaos may have other, more exotic uses for their supplicants. In preparation for the rebellion, the best cultists are led away to subterranean laboratories staffed by warp sorcerers. Hideous rites mix with forbidden xenosurgical technology to bring profane transformation unto these mortals. But mortal they are no longer. Through implantation of demonic flesh and ineffable surgeries on most major organs, the men are able to rise from their graves after death. The madmen are convinced they will become invincible to enemy damage. But really they are reborn upon death into bloated warp zombies. According to the Ordo Malleus, this is one of the least disturbing ritual alterations visited upon warp cultists.
Liquefy after the host is
best
infected.
left unknown.
Ugh.
The battles are truly nightmarish, as the cultists will fortify themselves deep within subterranean slaughter tunnels and urban centers, emerging by night to kidnap straggler guardsmen and sacrifice them for more powers. All forms of forbidden sorcery are given in the hands of the cultists and used against the space marines and guardsmen sent against them, causing havoc and destruction on a gargantuan scale with the vile energies of the warp so close. Servants of Nurgle, Lord of Plagues, have been known to be purposefully infected with lethal plagues, and then teleported directly into Space Marines command centers, infecting everyone within the command staff instantly.
Holy shit.
The battles rage on with total disregard for life and sanctity, mutilating the planet's surface with profane energies and lakes of blood. For every 100 cultists gunned down, 1,000 more take their place, fearsomely painted with occult tattoos, mutilations, and foul warp mutations, giving them preternatural strength and endurance. The battle the cultists and their traitor legion masters wage against the Imperium is truly turning the planet into a field of hell, scarcely distinguishable from the warp itself. The end of the warp cult depends on the desires of the creatures commanding them. If the war is going well, they may demand the teeming millions of worshippers to charge against the Imperium's forces again and again until victory is brought by sheer force of attrition. Or perhaps everything involved with the cult is a tragic ruse. The point is not victory, but
Sounds
the
like
deaths
it.
of nearly every human on the planet. The suicidal destruction of the cultists acts as the final component of a ritual set in place years before, as the eddies and currents of the warp stir into a furious torrent that summons one of the Chaos God's avatars himself. Should this deity's avatar appear in real space, the psychic backlash would be enormous. Even if the forces of chaos were eventually defeated, the planet would likely be lost forever, totally uninhabitable to human life. But most chaos incursions don't reach that point. When they wreak as much havoc as possible, the demons and traitor marines withdraw and open up one last portal to the Immaterium. Into this they drag the remaining hundreds of millions of human cultists, leaving the world a smoking ruin. The cult is finally complete and the individuals are dragged off to their final reward, an eternity of slavery and suffering on a chaos planet.
Their final destination.
So it's basically just like working the Imperium, except now it's worse. Now you're mutilated. Worth it. Jeez.
Is darkness,
So messed up, man.
and waiting for them is despair.
There's no winning, man. There's no winning.
Betrayal, confusion, lamentation, fear, and in the end, all that will be left is the purest dream.
Some of the brighter or more capable supplicants, including the heresiarch of the cult, can avoid the shackles of their gods and advance to high positions. Less than 1% of the total will become honored warp sorcerers, chaos lords, or powerful demons themselves, but the rest are cast into perdition, living in unendurable conditions of madness where the laws of physics no longer apply. Few retain their sanity for long on planets with oceans of blood, fire raining from the sky, plague-soaked streets filled with noxious demons. They serve as the playthings of monstrosities without name, their ultimate end unknown even to the God Emperor himself. Such is the reward of serving chaos. Cults are notoriously hard to stamp out. Like a disease, if a tiny fragment or cell remains, the demons will shift focus and empower the surviving cultists. Within a few years, the group is back on its feet and sowing dissent once again. Threats from the dark realm of emotion and fear are forever lurking in the corners of the Imperium. Never fool yourself into thinking you are safe from men who accept the blandishments of demons. The cults are protean, forever defying definition and classification. The ultimate force of chaos remains ever one step ahead of the Inquisition's scholars. It can appear anywhere, anytime, and corrupt anyone. Never forget that the original warp cultists were, of course, the Primarchs, the greatest humans that have ever lived in all of history outside of the Emperor himself. What chance do you have of avoiding the temptation?
I'm built
the hidden
different.
enemy of mutant and demon is what almost destroyed the Imperium in embryo. During the Horus Heresy, even the glorious Emperor of mankind did not see the sneak attack launched by the traitor legions. Without him, we would be utterly lost and consumed by the poisonous foes inimical to all life and reason. But even his light can illuminate only a fraction of darkness enveloping humanity in the void. Lurking, hiding, and waiting all around us amongst those we consider friends are forces more savage than any orc barbarian, more disgusting than any tyrannid bioform. Remember the words of Inquisitor Malachi Wernhardt, "The greatest monster of all is man." The demon does not choose to dwell outside the blessed materia, nor does the Xenos cast aside the holy form of man to walk another path. Both are terrible and foul, it is true, but the heretic and the traitor were given every gift in the universe and chose to cast them aside. There is no greater crime than this. Order, discipline, and unswerving faith are all that keeps humanity from eternal perdition at the hands of demons. And the jaws waiting to engorge us all are your friends, your neighbors, your underlings and overlords, your compatriots and family members. Within the light and peace of the Imperium is a foe blacker than anything lurking in the darkness of the void. It's just a matter of time before reason breaks, order is cast down like Lucifer from heaven, and the reign of madness and suffering begins. And we don't know how many they are, where they'll strike. They could be all around us at any time. We must remain eternally vigilant to keep the peace and order of the Imperium from being consumed by chaos. And even then, it may still not be enough.
Most likely isn't.
You cannot escape your fate.
Chaos is too powerful, man. There's always chaos, dude. You know? Well, that video was amazing. I was just kind of just in awe, just like watching this stuff. So sorry if I didn't talk too much. I was just kind of just like engrossed into the video itself. There's not really much I can really add to this. I think he covered it pretty damn well. There's really no winning against chaos, because enslaving your people inspires chaos, fighting inspires chaos, and basically everything the Imperium does basically is chaos, you know. So really, their biggest enemy is themselves. I mean, they're really causing all this terrible stuff to happen, the warp, all that stuff. It's all influenced by humanity. So they're fighting a never-ending battle. You know, there's no winning in this. So the only thing that they can really do to win or change the course that they're on is to revert themselves, and that'll never happen because that's heresy and blah blah blah. You know, so that's the Imperium. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video as much as I did. Again, the original video will be in the description. Please check them out. And also, if you guys enjoyed the reaction, you guys enjoyed my content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.